Folks, we made it. Nebraska kicks off the beginning of fall practice tomorrow. Football is back. And with that being said, there's a lot of optimism. There are a lot of storylines, but now more than ever, there are a lot of positional battles. This entire depth chart is up for grabs. We have no idea what the offense is going to look like, the defense, the special teams, and so much more. So in today's video, with fall ball beginning tomorrow, I'm going to preview the 7 biggest positional battles for the Huskers that are must-see TV over these next couple weeks. What's going on the offensive line, defensive line, in the secondary, the running back core, and so much more. Who are some young players who are going to rise to the rankings and shock everybody? Who are some veterans who need to prove themselves right now or they might get benched, and everything else you need to know. So really quick, this video is jam-packed. Hey, if you're excited about football almost being back, I know I am, hit that like button. And also, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? The season is almost here. This is a place for you for daily content, talking Huskers. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. Without further ado, we have a lot to get into. Nebraska kicks off fall practice tomorrow. Football is almost back. We are almost there. I'm super excited. There's a lot of optimism. The majority of Nebraska fans, we feel like we're finally going to take that huge step forward this year to win 8, 9, 10 plus games. But it all starts in fall camp. But despite all the optimism, despite all the storylines, for the first time in a long time, there are a lot of positional battles. Usually when you roll into fall camp, there's only 1 or 2 battles that are going on. We feel very confident about the depth chart. That's not the case this year. This is one of the more talented Nebraska teams we've seen in the past decade. And for that reason, because of the talent, there's a lot of things that are up for grabs. A lot of younger players nipping at the bit to start. Some veterans who are trying to hold on to their place. So let's get things started with the number 1 positional battle that I'm looking out for. Now, this is not in any particular order. If anything, it gets more interesting as the video progresses, so make sure you watch the entire thing. But the number 1 positional battle that I'm looking out for in all of fall practice for Nebraska is none other than the trenches on the defensive line, because really people aren't talking about this enough. Of course, we replaced everybody on the D-line from last year, whether it's a Ty Robinson, it's a Nash, a Jamarion Butler, a James Williams, a couple other players who went to the portal. This defensive line is pretty much brand new. And while, on paper, I feel pretty confident about 3 players who may or may not start for the Huskers, that is Keona Davis, Riley Van Poppel, and Cameron Lenhard, there are a bunch of younger players who are going to try to dethrone them over these next couple weeks. Let's get things started with, in my opinion, the biggest wild card on this entire roster for Nebraska. Former 5-star, one of the best recruits in America, Wilson Dittman, with his athletic ability, with his upside, with the ability to be a future first-round NFL draft pick, and if he can produce on the field and he can lock in from Monday to Friday, I see no reason why Williams Canary cannot start this year. And he's going to bench potentially a guy like Cameron Lenhard or Keona Davis, because that's how athletic he is. That's how talented he is. I'm not really worried about what Williams Dittman does on the field. I'm worried about him from Monday to Friday. That's about him figuring that out during fall ball, learning the Big Ten offenses at a high level, continuing to read the playbook, again, eating right, going in the weight room right. So Williams Dittman, man, he's a big wild card. He could very well start on this team, but he's going to decide his own role depending on how he performs. Is he just going to be a third down pass rusher, or is he going to be an every down type of guy? He figures that out, but with his upside, he's easily going to dethrone a player, like a Cameron Lenhard or Keona Davis if needed. So that's a big wild card. We don't know what's going to happen there with Williams Dittman. And then there's another couple other guys who the staff, they really secretly like that people just don't talk about enough. Jalyn George, somebody coming back from injury. Of course, he really excelled in winter conditioning, was out all of spring ball. But, this is somebody who the coaching staff, they felt like they got a hidden gem. He's very well going to be in the mix at both 3 technique and at nose tackle. I could see him dethroning a guy like Riley Van Poppel if needed. Elijah Judy, somebody who's the oldest player on this defensive line. He's a veteran. He's somebody who's a former 4-star. He still has some decent potential. He could very well get in the starting lineup. You have some big wild cards like Jordan Ashow, like a Sua Lafodu, even like a Gabe Moore. So, again, this entire defensive line is pretty much wide open. Even like a Keona Davis, I think a lot of people are just shooing in that Keona Davis is going to start. That might not be the case. So, again, this defensive line, the first thing I'm looking out for, we need Nebraska to have a dominant defensive line once again, not only in the run-stopping department, but honestly, we need them to take a big step forward in the pass rush. That wasn't even the case last year. We could not rush the passer. That needed to change this year, and hopefully they can figure that out in fall camp. So I'm looking out for that defensive line who can start Williams Dittman, big wild card. Hopefully he lives up to expectations. Then let's get into number 2. Let's keep with the trenches. Before we get to all the skill positions, I want to go to the offensive line. Now, the offensive line is pretty much set in stone. Okay, your left tackle is going to be Elijah Pritchett. Your left guard is going to be Henry Lateef. Your center is going to be Justin Evans. Your right guard is going to be Rocco Spindler. But that leaves one crucial positional battle at the right tackle spot. Who is going to start there? Because honestly, there's 4 players in contention for it. Could be Teddy Prohaska, which in my opinion is the favorite in the clubhouse. You got Gunnar Kutula, who started a lot last year. You have Turner Corcoran, who's a former big-time recruit, just has not lived up to expectations. And then, once again, there's the dark horse, who people aren't talking about, who could very well start, and that's Tyler Knack, who really hasn't played throughout his career, but the coaching staff, they really like him. So it's a 4-horse battle. We'll see what happens there at right tackle. Literally anything could happen. I could see any of those players start. Now, if you want my opinion, I do believe it's going to be Teddy Prohaska. I think when he's on the field and he's healthy, he plays better than all 4 of those guys. But the problem with him is he's just never healthy, right? Gunnar Kutula probably has the highest upside. Turner Corcoran, I do not want him playing on the field ever again at tackle. And then Tyler Knack, again, we've never seen Tyler Knack play, so he could be really good. The coaching staff's seen him. We just haven't seen him yet, so he's a complete wild card. So that right tackle battle is going to be very important. Who wins that? Because we need to solidify the tackle position. We feel good about an interior offensive line. You know, Elijah Pritchett, obviously a big question mark. We're gonna roll with him, but right tackle's a big question mark. You got to figure that out because we can't have a revolving door there once again. You go back to last year, we would have not lost that Iowa game if it weren't for Bryce Benhart missing a big block at the end of the game. You know, and Dylan Riley gets sacked, force a fumble, and then Iowa makes the game-winning field goal. Right, that right tackle spot has lost a lot of ball games over the past couple years. Can't happen anymore. Whoever wins that right tackle battle is going to be thrust into action. They better play at an elite level. We figured out now. My bet is going to be Teddy Prohaska. Then let's go to the tight end position. This is a huge positional battle because once again, just like right tackle, I could see literally anything happen. There are 4 players who are in the mix to start. Again, you have, in my opinion, the leader in the clubhouse who started all of spring practice. That's Luke Lindenmeyer. He's a blocking tight end at best. He, was a former walk-on. He's really worked his way up. He's more of a vertical threat now than ever before, but he's never a guy who's going to just knock your socks off. You have Heinrich Haarberg, his first year at tight end, his last year of eligibility. Is he making that transition too late? We know how athletic he is, but can he block at a high level, right? Is he a polished route running? Because that's something that nobody ever talks about. Like, his route running is not very good compared to all the rest of these guys. Can he figure that one out? Markway, who might just be the most talented tight end on the roster, is he healthy? And then same deal, Carter Nelson, another wild card. Is he healthy? We know how talented he is, and what's his weight looking like? So the tight end battle is huge. If you want my opinion, who I think is going to start, I think it's going to be Markway and Luke Lindenmeyer. But if you want to know who I want to start, I want it to be Markway. I think Markway is somebody who is incredibly underrated. When he played at LSU, he played as a true freshman. He was very, very good. He's 260 and he's an athletic freak. But once again, just like Teddy Prohaska, he can't stay healthy. Got to figure that out this year. But this tight end battle is going to be huge because that's a key part of our offense. We haven't had an elite tight end in a while. We have good tight ends, whether it's an Austin Allen, Travis Vokalek, Jack Stoll, right? We've had some good tight ends. We've never had elite tight ends. Can we change that this year with potentially a Markway? Even with the Haarberg, who's a complete wild card as well. We'll see. But tight end is a huge battle that I'm looking out for. Then let's go back to the defense. Because in my opinion, this could very well be Nebraska's biggest positional battle. It's in the secondary, and it's at that corner 2 spot. And the reason why I think it's what could potentially going to be Nebraska's biggest positional battle is because that was such a big liability for the Huskers last year, because we had a revolving door at corner. Sierra Wright was our corner 1 for the majority of the year, but we didn't have a corner 2 because Tommy Hill was hurt. We tried Marcus Buford out there. He wasn't very good. We moved him back to safety. We tried Malcolm Hartzog there. Of course, we know what happened with Malcolm Hartzog. Then we threw out guys like Jeremiah Charles. He was trash. He got burnt. Bly Hill, he was trash. He got burnt. So, there were so many guys who we'd try to plug in at corner. Didn't really work. Donovan Jones, honestly, the best solution. So we have a completely blank slate this year. We know Sierra Wright's going to be our guy at corner 1. We need to figure out corner 2. It's going to be either Amari Sanders or it's going to be Andrew Marshall. That's my opinion. Again, there's very well could be Donovan Jones in that mix. He's somebody who I like. I just don't think Donovan Jones is going to start there. Could very well happen. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be Amari Sanders with his upside, with his, him being 6'2", very physical, great tackler. But there's a reason why they brought in Andrew Marshall. Okay, and they paid him some good money coming in from Idaho, one of the better FCS transfers in America. So it's going to be a great battle. I'm excited to see what happens. I feel great about the talent in this corner room. But again, talent's just one thing, but you got to polish that talent. You got to be a developed, a player when you actually get on the football field. So excited to see what happens there. I'm hoping it's Amari Sanders. I'd be cool with either. But I hope it's one of those two because I just don't really feel confident about some of the other guys. And Donovan Jones is good, but we only saw him in 1 game. He had a very small sample size. So I'm not really sure what we're going to see from him, actually against Cincinnati or against better teams in the Big Ten. And then let's go back to offense. Okay. At that quarterback spot, another big battle that's going to very well dictate Nebraska's entire season. What's going on at quarterback 2? Because we've seen so many times in the past 10 years, the starting quarterback for Nebraska, they have bad luck. They go down with injury. They miss multiple games. They miss big snaps. And for that reason, Nebraska, they lose a lot of these key games. So, unfortunately, while Dylan Riley played, all 13 games last year, that was great. The odds aren't in his favor to do that again. There's a very real possibility our quarterback 2 plays in significant snaps and maybe starts a couple games. So we need to figure out who our quarterback 2 is going to be. It's either going to be Jalen Gramstad or it's going to be Marcus Davila. I've kind of already told you guys the stakes here. If Matt Rhule had to say, it's going to be Jalen Gramstad. He continues to hype up Jalen Gramstad. He believes he's a leader. He believes he has a very high IQ. That's awesome. But if Dana Holgorsen had his say, I think it's going to be Marcus Davila, because there's a reason why Marcus Davila was transferred here. You know, if Matt Rhule was making that decision, Marcus Davila wouldn't be here, because he would see no need for him to be here. But Dana Holgorsen made the executive decision. He said, hey, I run the offense now. I want to bring in my guy who I'm very familiar with, and Marcus Davila. So Marcus Davila transferred here, and obviously he's now a Cornhusker. So Dana Holgorsen's going to have his say. He's going to go with the guy who has more upside, with high potential, who's going to be a lot more polished than what he was in spring ball. I think it's going to be Marcus Davila. I think he's going to win that quarterback 2 job. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think, again, Dana Holgorsen has a lot of power. He has pretty much complete say over this offense. For that reason, I think it's going to be Marcus Davila at that quarterback 2 spot. But time will tell. Now, going on to the 6th positional battle. Let's just keep it with the offense. Let's go to the running back spot. Not necessarily with our starter, but with our backup. Because very similar to all these battles. Again, we have no idea what's going to happen. You have Quinn Ives, obviously, the coaching staff, they love to hype him up, but we just never seen with Quinn Ives. And he got banged up at the end of spring ball. So he's somebody who not only has horrific production, he had 6 carries for 7 yards last year, but he also has a huge injury problem. What's going on with Quinn Ives? Is Jamarion Parker going to be healthy? He also has an injury problem as a true freshman with very high potential. Mekhi Nelson, somebody who's very solid, but can he put it all together? I don't know. Running back 2 is a big battle. And honestly, probably going to be Quinn Ives, but can he stay healthy? We'll see. Again, you guys already know how I feel about Quinn Ives. I really have much hope in him, but running back 2, definitely a big battle, because again, Emmett Johnson can't carry this entire running back room. There's going to be plays where you're going to have to put in a second string. Bell cows don't exist anymore in college football. You've got to have complementary running backs. And if Emmett Johnson ever goes down, we're definitely going to need our depth. And I think it's probably more likely than not he's going to go down, because we've had a lot of running back issues the last couple years. 7th, biggest positional battle for the Huskers. This is one that, honestly, out of all these ones, this is one that isn't discussed at all. And this is the middle linebacker spot. Because there's a 3-way battle between 3 players for 2 starting positions at that middle linebacker. Okay, you have Vincent Shavers, you have Buda Wright, and you have Marquez Watson-Trent. Who is going to start at those 2 middle linebacker spots? Because again, we run a 3-3-5. We know that one of our linebacker spots is a Jack. Jashawn McCullough will start there. But then you have 3 very high upside, 2 veteran players, 3 very productive guys trying to compete for 2 middle linebacker spots. Who's it going to be? In my opinion, it's going to be Vincent Shavers, and it's going to be Marquez Watson-Trent, because Marquez Watson-Trent, he's a guy who has great production, one of the best linebackers in America, 120 tackles last year. And then you have Vincent Shavers, who has that raw upside, who's kind of like a Levante David-esque guy. You have Buda Wright coming off the bench, who, while he's a senior and he's played very good football in the past, when he's healthy, who says he's better than Marquez Watson-Trent? He's just not. He's not a better tackler than Marquez Watson-Trent, and I don't know if he has the upside that Vincent Shavers has. So that's just my take. I think it's either I can almost guarantee you I think Marquez Watson-Trent's going to start. So it's really either Vincent Shavers or Buda Wright. Who's going to start there? In my opinion, it's going to be Vincent, but we will see, because that's a big time battle. And then last but not least, I'm going to throw in an extra one. I said 7 positional battles, but I'm throwing one more, because this is probably the most crucial battle out of all these. This is none other than the kicker competition. Who's going to start a kicker? Because just like all of these battles, it's not even a 2-way battle. It's a 3-way battle. Just like all these others, a 3-way, 4-way battle. It's completely wide open. Tristan Alvano, John Hull, Kyle Keenan. Who's it going to be? All of them have their pros. All of them have their cons. Honestly, for all intended purposes, I think it's going to be either Kyle Keenan or John Hull. I have no belief in Tristan Alvano anymore. I think he's lost it. I'm very shocked that he actually made it to fall camp. I very well thought he was going to transfer, but listen, John Hull is somebody who did play decent when we had good snaps last year and good holds, but there were a couple times where he shanked the kick, and we did have a good snap, and we did have a good hold, so he's not a perfect kicker. Kyle Keenan is somebody who played decent at Charlotte last year, transferred to Cal, ended up transferring before he played a game there, but he's somebody with a big leg, definitely high upside. There's a reason Mike Eckler brought him in. Clearly, Mike Eckler was not satisfied with the kicking room. He was not satisfied with John Hull. He's not satisfied with Tristan Alvano. That's why he brought in Kyle Keenan in. We'll see. We'll see what happens at kicker there, because we need somebody who can drain literally 90% of the time and make all the extra points. And when you're inside the 30, it's automatic. We don't have to worry about it. We have not had a kicker, with that skill set in a very long time. Figure it out. We need to have our guy this year. I hope, honestly, kind of hope it's Kyle Kinnanen, honestly, because that's the one guy who once again is a wild card. I know I'm kind of overusing that word. He's a wild card because we've seen him at Charlotte, but we've never seen him in Nebraska uniform. I know what Tristan Vano is. I know he's not very good. I know what John Hull is. I know he's not very good. I don't know what Kyle Kinnanen is. Let's give him a go. Right, kicker's a position where you don't really develop. You kind of know what you have after your true freshman sophomore year at the very minimum. You know, you're not going to like develop. You're not going to not play for the first 3 years and then just break out as a senior at the kicker spot. It's not going to happen, right? You know what you are very early on. So I know what those two are. I don't know what Kyle Kinnanen is. Let's see if we can figure that out. All right, guys, I'm pumped up. Nebraska begins fall practice tomorrow. Man, I am excited. Let me know your thoughts down below about everything. Hey, I want to thank you guys all for the support on the deep dive yesterday, my biggest video that I do all year on the channel. If you have not watched that video, it will be linked down below. Again, appreciate all of you guys showing your support watching that video. Again, I put a lot of work into it, so thank you guys so much for everything you do to me, for me. And I'm just really grateful for this fan base. I'm grateful for the season almost being here. So, all right, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you made this far. As always, folks, go grad, go Matt Rule, and I will see you in the next one.